Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Behind the camera is Joshua Blanc. Now today we're considering spring, although we had a snowfall about 2 days ago, 2 or 3 inches, so we definitely have a ways to go. But anyway, we saw a whole bunch of birds the other day feeding on some alder bushes, and they were so cute. And of course the cutest of them are the chickadees. So I have a couple of photographs here that we took, and they're just the cheekiest things. They have a repertoire of songs that, and for such a little bird, it has this huge volume. Its little chests are just heaving away when they're singing. And they're probably one of the most intelligent birds. They figure out a lot of things. They store seeds and things, so it's great. Here's another photograph. This one is more in the summertime, so that's what we're working with today. I was hoping to do 2 or 3 more, like nuthatches and maybe some redpolls. They're around as well, and but we're okay with chickadees for today. So we're going to start by this is Time for Crafts foam, and it's just a nice brown color. If it was white, it would be kind of glaring, so it's great. The thickness is pretty good. It's very flexible, as you can see, and if you do a cutout or a stamp of them, here's a chickadee that we're going to be working with, then you know, it lasts quite a long time. So anyway, we're going to do a drawing of a chickadee on here, just freehand. And I just want to show you the process of, if you're on site, say you're doing a plein air painting, how to go about drawing things, you know, where you can't trace or do other things. So give yourself a reference as to how big you want this to be, and mark it off, because we have to, this is a 5x7 gel plate, and so it should fit nicely on the 5x7. So here's where the beak ends, and this is where the tail ends, so in between. So we just use our reference photograph. There we go. Okay, so I have both, and when you're out in the field, that's exactly what you do. You look for some references, and then you look for some things you can use as a measuring device. Now my measuring device is a head, so we need to know if that's where I want my image to be. This is a head, so I can mark that off. And then you take the little head and then measure the body. There's one head. There's 2 heads, so 2 heads for the body. So there's one, and there's another. Let's see here. 1 and a little bit more like a third. Okay, so here's our head. There's, and one more, and then a tiny bit more. And from there on, it's tail. So the tail is how many heads? So about 1 1/3. Here's our head. So our tail should be 1 1/3. So that's about right. So here's our tail. And then we just have to draw it in. And our little head. Now, same thing this way. Take your head and then measure for width. So that's about 2. So 1, 2. So our width comes to about here. And there you go. I mean, you could measure that all the way along. Like here, it's thicker than here, right? But at some point, you can probably gauge it by yourself. Okay, so my little beak. Now I'm drawing on here with just an HB pencil very lightly. It won't really leave a mark behind. You could adjust. You're going to be cutting it out anyway, so there can be more adjustments. I think the tail starts just a little bit sooner, so I'm going to adjust that. And it's a little fatter here. And fatter here. Now we won't see much of his claws, so we're just going to go. And how many? So about a third for the size of the claws. So you get the idea. We're not going to cut this one out because I've done it already. You don't need to watch me cutting things. And, you know, place the eye. Have a look, and the beak goes in like that. And then it has marks. And there's black here to here. And then we're just going to go to the other picture and you'll have to reverse it in your brain. And so just getting some of the nice wing imagery here. Okay. And you could probably be fairly graphic here. You get the idea rather than the, you know, the precise details. You are going to be cutting it out after all. And the tail flares a little bit more at the end here. So adjust that. Okay, so they've got the basics, then you can take a ballpoint pen. In Britain I found they call it a biro. So, hey?
Biro.
Biro? Oh, whatever, okay. It must be the accent. Okay, so anyway, I'm using a stylus with a little ball, I don't know what you call those things, whatever, at the end. So here's, now this time you do press really hard. And again, if you feel that you need to adjust a few things, by all means. Okay. And the eye, these little markings that makes it look like a chickadee. Little black throat. And just reinforce this a bit. Cutting the feet out is a little bit tricky. But scissors sometimes help. I use a X-Acto knife usually. Now they have a little, and here you can't really see the breast very much, but here they have a little bit of color here. It's not entirely black and gray. So here's our bird. And then we just proceed to cut it out. So this one I've cut previously. Here's the negative of it. And that's what we're going to be using to start. But first we're going to do a transfer of the alder bush background. So let's set that up. So here's a black and white photo. My printer is running out of black ink, so I'm not sure this will work. Might have to do it again, but we'll give it a shot. So starting with a little bit of black on the plate. This is Amsterdam seems to work the best for transfers. And I'm just going to add a little bit of red. We're going to roll it out. And the trick with transfers is the paint shouldn't be too thick on the plate. Sort of, with practice, you'll see how much is necessary. Brayering off what we don't need. You want just enough. We're close here. Place your imagery. And just let it sit a minute or so. And then take it away. Well, I guess there's still enough toner left to resist. So we have a good... Now we're going to let this dry, and then now we will put another tone on it and then print it off. So I'm going to put several tones on, so I'm not going to really brayer out too much. So do that by putting a few little spots of color here and there. And I want some contrast, so we're actually going to use a bit of blue. And because this orange, which is a complement, you're going to get a neutral tone. This is a neutral grade beige. Okay, so we're just going to roll out. Now you want to take off so much paint that you can see the image underneath. That's the secret to good transfers. Once it starts appearing, and you have to work fairly fast because things will dry and then it won't transfer at all. Just a tiny bit more. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, now I think we're going to register this. Just a tiny bit on the end there. Make sure when you do this that you do your edge as well. Well, it's pretty good. Everything's taped down and secure. So the next thing we do, we take our negative, and you have to figure out how you're going to place this bird. Is it going to be facing this way or this way? Okay, we'll put the bird on as to how you want it. Then we're going to take the sheet, and it's got to go this way. All right, then we take a little bit of white. We're going to just make this slightly gray. This bird has got to be a lot brighter than the background. And I've got to be able to see, because we're going to be painting on here, I've got to be able to see the image when we transfer it. So a little bit of that. And so the next step is just to do a stencil here of the bird negative shape. And then you'll see a little trick we're going to do. So I'm using a fair amount of paint because I want it to both stay on the plate and I might just darken the color a little bit. Just a light gray. Okay, take that off. And you can adjust if you want. The beak got just a little bit blobby, so there we go. Now the trick is to get some detail on here. And I just might let's put this on here. Reinforce some of the lines. I've been printing it quite a bit, so right, okay, so place that on here. And that gives us the details of the bird. And again, maybe we'll wipe a little bit here. Make sure. Take it off. See, that leaves the details of the wings and things. And then you print again. So we have the start of our bird. Okay, and we have an image that we can paint on here. Now you need to look at the bird as well. Okay, so you take your brush and let's put some of the detailed colors on there. We need the black. And we're going to go to our golden open paints because they will give us a little bit more working time. So I've laid out some of my golden paints, my old golden open paints, and we have our little bird for reference. We have our image on here, and we're going to now mix the black. Now I know we use black on the base here, that's because of the transfer, but blacks are better mixed, they have more life to them. So here's a lesson on mixing for your black. So take your lightest color, and then add a little bit of the blue. And see how dark it goes right away? You don't have to adjust for value because we're trying to get a black. And to make it a cool color, more neutral, we add a little bit of the yellow. This is like a sienna yellow. That gives you a more neutral color. You can see on here that it's still reading a little bit of the blue, so we just add a little bit more of the yellow, and we might have to add just a little bit more. If you want a really dark color, then add a little bit of green, which is, I've got a phthalo green. Viridian works too, it's a good color. So now we're getting more of a neutral. And if you think that's still too cool, go back to your red. And the golden open colors are nice because they last quite a long time. So then we start painting. Wet your brush. This is an acrylic paint. Don't have it too soggy. So paint that in. It goes right down to the beak. And then there's a spot here. Don't use too much paint on your brush. Sort of dab it off. Sort of you can feather it out just like it is on the bird after all. And then it goes into a gray tone. We're just going to gray the body, the wings down a little bit. I was having trouble earlier trying to, on the red, it's impossible. Okay, so we're just gonna make a nice little gray and a little bit darker. There we go. So on the body, we've got the wings are more of a gray. Brush strokes are good. All the way down to this tail section. I'm gonna just, the tail looks pretty dark to me, so we're just gonna darken that. I'm using a fairly small brush, it's almost like a rigger. Now we want some details. And I can see on here where the wings make their appearance. That's the wing feathers. Maybe that little tail portion should be a bit darker. There we go. And then all we have to do is put in some feet, little feet. I don't know if you've noticed, but bird feet are, you know, their claws are quite long. For perching purposes. And then we just draw some nice some branches in there. Okay. a little paint in this white area, which makes the chickadees so distinctive. You can't miss them. And a little bit of the eye, adding a little bit of yellow, and then a little bit of this pinky tone, and then into the gray. That will give us a good range of color for the base. Just a little more yellow, I think. I'm being generous with the paint because as you print, you're going to lose some of it. And then a little beak. Okay, I'm just going to make a few adjustments. Some of these limbs are a little bit too thick for my taste, because they're more at the end of the branch. And I want to bring the black up a little bit into the up into here. I'm using an extra brush for the white because it's just too unwieldy otherwise. And we're going to outline some of the wings here. So I'm not really following the drawing or the too much, you know, let yourself go. Study the bird. Or white over. And a little black dot. Let's see if that prints. We might have to do that again. So let's give that a shot printing and we'll see what happens. Very important to register, I think. Okay, we have a little bit of a blob. So what you do in that case is you just take and get the excess paint off. And we'll touch up the eye. And a little bit of these feathery things. Place your eye. You might want to just shore up some of these limbs. Maybe use the gray. As if the light's catching up. Okay, go back, and on here you can take it off too. Often the ghost print works better, but we're doing okay. And that's pretty good. I might touch up the beak a little bit. And a little bit more of the black here, this rounded section, which makes the so you can go back and forth like this until you're satisfied that it's working for you. So these are just final details that, and again, take it back. That gives it that print look. And I think we're there. As usual, of course, you know, you'll take a lot more time than I do in this very quick demo, but you get the idea. And so now you have a nice painterly bird on a transferred background. And I think it's kind of cute. So, lots of fun. Experiment with this process because there's lots of other things you can do. We'll be showing these at the end. A couple I did yesterday. And I did do other birds and cut them out, but for the sake of time, we will, and I'll show that piece in the end. So thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe. Help us to grow our channel so we can bring you lots more content. Take care of yourselves and your families as always, especially in these very dire times. So we'll see you again. Bye for now. Change sprayers here. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Did the whole thing fall? Yeah. Oh dear. Too funny. Boonies. Yeah, they're having fun with us.